Nice to see so many friendly faces. So thank you all for joining today. I realise it's quite busy in the lead up to Christmas, so it's nice to have you all in the room. So I'm gonna kick off. I guess just a quick note that this meeting is recorded, but that's so that we can send it out to anyone who misses the meeting so that they can get the feedback as well. And also just capture your comments because sometimes it's quite hard to scribble down all the thoughts when we're kind of in the room. So it helps us to kind of refer to things if there's anything we're unsure of. I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. There'll be a bit of an intro and then we'll be going into breakout rooms later on, but I'll talk about the structure shortly. So let me just bring up my screen so I can see things properly. So today we are looking at the DLUHC and MMC kit of parts, which many of you have been involved in since the open call, which was way back in May, which seems a long time ago and was a lot warmer than now. Just a few housekeeping rules before we kick off. If I can ask that everybody stays on mute until the breakout session. And once we get into the breakout session, if I'm sure you all will, but if you can just wait your turn to speak and feel free to use the Q&A through the meeting. Any questions that we don't manage to respond to today, we will be responding to in due course because we want to make sure that we kind of feed to industry as much as possible. So yeah, we'll be making sure that we respond back to you all once we get those questions. I realise an hour and a half is probably quite well, it's not enough time to get through all the questions you'll have, so that's why we're going to do that. So in terms of the agenda, so there'll be just a quick welcome and intros just so that you can meet all the team that are here today that have been working on this project. Then we'll be carrying out a project update, talking about the interim report which has been produced and just what you'll find within there. And then I'll be passing over to Anne at HLM, who'll be talking about the research findings from the standardisation research that many of you have been involved in. And then Graham, who will be talking about the digital kit of parts, which is it being developed off the feedback that we've received from you all. And then finally, we're going to spend 45 minutes in a breakout workshop, and I'll discuss the structure of that shortly. And then we'll have next steps and meeting close, so you know what we're up to after this workshop. But in terms of what we need from you, so things that we'll need are thoughts on what we've done so far, and your thoughts on how we should move this project forward, especially if you've seen the development and kind of where we're at. And then any barriers that might stop you from the digital kit of parts. You'll see with the breakout question, there's a couple of questions that kind of align with that. And the other thing, which I'll go into more detail on later, but is to get your support and advocacy going forward if you feel that this project is benefiting the sector and you see that in the future this could actually really help the sector to gain momentum within the MMC space, especially for Category 2 and Category 5. But I will now just hand over to the team for welcome and intros. I'm sure I won't bore you with my intro because I'm sure most of you know me. My name's Katie Rudin from Akerlof. But I will now hand over to Anne from HLM, and Anne, I'll make sure that everyone's picked up as we go around the room. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Anne Daw from HLM Architects, and we are leading on the research for this project.
Thank you. Sophia?
Hello, everybody. I'm Sofia Raneri from HLM Architects, helping on the standardization analysis.
Great. And then somewhere in the room there should be Graham and Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. Graham Clark from Bureau Happold. We are leading on the development of the kit of parts.
Hi, Jonathan Royham, Technical Director of Bureau Happold, helping work with Graham on that aspect.
Fanny, because you'll be in the meeting rooms. Penny from Akerlof.
Sorry, I thought you said Ellie. Apologies, from where I work with Katie at Akerlof.
And Ellie.
Hello, I'm also a partner at Akerlof. I sit on the governance board for this programme and I'll just be helping to facilitate in the background today.
And then if I hand to Jamie and then Elizabeth.
Hello everyone, Jamie from Akerlof. Nice to see you all.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Help pull together the sort of final interim report and also the final report.
And then last but by no means least, we've got Hannah, who hopefully is here. Oh, you're on mute, Hannah, sorry.
Sorry, my camera was off and I was on mute, so that wasn't very helpful. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Hannah from Limburger Associates. We're a partner on this project, leading on management and leadership aspects.
And I'm hoping I've not missed anyone else in the room, but please put your hand up if I have. So yeah, and we've also got Charlotte from Cape, who's kindly going to be helping out in one of the meeting rooms as well when we break out, because there's quite a few of us in the room right now. So if I just move on from here. So a bit on the project, many of you know what we're up to, so I'll just kind of touch on this in high level, but the purpose of this meeting is to enhance your understanding of the project brief. So we just kind of give a little bit of, I guess, a context to what we've been up to and provide an update on where we're at on this project so that we can capture your feedback, also understand what might hold you back from using the digital kit of parts. We'll be letting you know the next step for the project, but we'd also like your input in what you think the next step should be too, as really this is a digital kit of parts for industry, so we want to make sure that industry benefits from that. So the problem with MMC, I think these have been reflected, I guess, in terms of perception of MMC. So for developers and procurement, some of the things we hear are reputation of modern methods of construction and lack of interoperability between systems. That means that people have to lock in quite early to system providers. For some developers and procurers, they can see it as cost prohibitive, although I think there's a lot of research that's showing that it's kind of how you align the kind of business models. But from a supplier side, one of the findings we've kind of had is that really the inconsistent demand and fragmented market within construction is meaning that it's really hard to kind of access the opportunities that are there, and planning difficulties really exacerbate that. So all of this is leading to a really inefficient, complex and risky environment in which kind of many of us, I think, within this room are trying to negotiate the various kind of problems that relates to. So that might kind of be in terms of warranty and trying to get warranty, but it might also be in just convincing clients that your solution is what would be kind of worth pursuing on that project and might actually bring most value. So the project scope that we received from the Department for Levelling Up, so this was commissioned in January 2023, and it was Modern Methods of Construction Standardisation and Research Kit of Parts project to help address the lack of standardisation within low-rise housing and in the sector, which has been identified as a barrier to MMC adoption. And the department have asked us to develop a digital kit of parts that will encourage the uptake of modern methods of construction and support their aims to deliver more, better quality, safer, greener, affordable homes. And all of this is a key step in the government translating a lot of policy, especially in the kind of presumption in favour of offsite, into practice, and it aligns with commitments in the TIP roadmap, construction playbook and housing select committee findings. So the digital kit of parts we're looking at is looking to increase choice and interoperability of MMC solutions so that through standardisation we can improve productivity across housing and outcomes overall. So when we set off, at the moment we're on a 1-year research project for the Department for Levelling Up, and this is finishing around February, March 2024, focusing on modern methods of construction category 2 and category 5 so that we can develop a digital kit of parts for low-rise housing. So this is outlined kind of in a lot of detail within the interim report as to kind of like the heights, but our top height is 3 stories, and that's so that we can kind of be below 11 meters, focus in and kind of really focus this project on a certain aspect of kind of like low-rise housing. In the future that could be scaled up if some of the problems align, but it's allowed us to really focus in on the manufacturers within that market too. And it's to help encourage standardisation and the use of MMC and improve supply. One of the questions we've been asked quite a lot on this project is why we're only focusing on category 2 and category 5, because obviously we've got a lot of categories that have been set out by the department. And what we found is that although some barriers do apply universally across MMC, as they do share some common features, and I think some of the barriers that apply to MMC also apply to the traditional construction space as well, with kind of what we're finding at the moment in such a hard climate. But the extent to which they affect each category of modern methods of construction is variable. So each category needs to be supported in different ways. Our research has illustrated that the industry believes standardisation and increasing supplier choice within low-rise housing could help build that market confidence within modern methods of construction category 2, so the panelised systems, and category 5 of the sub-assemblies. So that's why we're focusing on these at the moment, but it doesn't mean that we're not sharing the learnings. We've got Make UK Modular on our strategic advisory board, and so that's helped us to understand the barriers that they have so that we can make sure that we kind of are taking in as much research as possible through this project and those learnings so that we can all step forward together. And the current project status at the moment, we are testing solutions through research and engagements. This is the last big engagement session we have before we then analyse the results and what elements will then be built into the tool, which Bureau Happold have been building out since the summer. And really a big thank you from me for all the engagement that's happened over the last, well, since February. It's been amazing to have so many people wanting to get involved in this project, to share their feedback. So I really appreciate the time that you're taking to do that. And when you look at the engagement rate we have had through the programme, we've been really kind of excited that everybody's seen value in this. So we've had the open call was in May, and so this is our town hall event kind of giving you a big update. And next year we'll have a big celebration event to kind of celebrate the close of the project. We've also had engagement from a strategic advisory board, which has been headed up by Trina Chakravarti, who is part of Building Better. So it's been great to get a cross section from kind of housing providers to manufacturers within that, so that we can actually start to get that feedback live, as well as feeding in from all the people in the room today that have been helping us out. So just a quick one on the interim report before I hand over to HLM, who will tell you about some of the findings. So the interim report is going to be released to industry so that we ensure the entire industry benefits from our collective efforts, and insights can be shared back to you all. What we want to do is make sure that this is as open and transparent as kind of people have been and honest to us. We want to make sure we reflect that back to you. And it contains feedback from the industry, from all the focus workshops that we had up to kind of when the interim report was published. We published findings from the standardisation research and analysis for low-rise MMC solutions, so that you can understand some of the alignments that seem to be appearing between systems. Our methodology for the approach to the digital kit of parts build, and recommendations to industry and DLUHC. So when this is published, I really would say to kind of have a look at those recommendations, if there's any that you could be taking forward, to potentially take them forward, because we've tried to recommend above and beyond just this project, because we recognise that there's some things that have been fed back to us that the whole industry will benefit from. So I'm now going to hand over to Anne, who will talk about the research findings, and just let me know when you need me to move on slides.
Okay, you can go to the first one. We are trying to summarize everything, quite a long process. I apologize for my voice. I've had a cold and it's not always working. So we're going to try to summarize everything in a very few slides. So apologize, this has to stay fairly high level. Our research and stakeholder engagement, though, to date, has identified that the housing market works slightly differently from other sectors. There is a higher risk of delay in the process of housing delivery, and there's a greater lack of standardization in the demand. And both of those impact the pipeline for manufacturers. Through our research, we've also identified these 3 key features to embed in the digital kit of parts that can help to address these issues. And in turn, they would also encourage the industry to adopt MMC more and to help improve the interoperability and productivity of housing delivery. And they are the standardization of performance and dimensions, a specification for minimum product quality and standards, and a common language for digital information exchange to improve alignment between design and manufacture. Next slide, please, Katie.
in terms of benefits in the industry, standardization plays a key role in the digital kit of parts, and the benefits of standardization to the housing industry are to take the current diverse set of housing providers and designers who all want to do something slightly different, and to give them information about the best points of standardization and alignment around a minimum baseline performance. This will then channel designs to be better aligned and encourage demand to be consolidated and aggregated, allowing manufacturers to concentrate their efforts on fewer variations and making them stronger and better informed about the pipeline of demand that's coming to them. For housing providers, they'll be able to know what their designs can be supplied with by a wider selection of manufacturers within the supply chain. And all of this will reduce risk for everybody involved. It's really important to understand how we're creating the standardization, and that it's not something we're trying to impose on the industry, but it's something that has been generated by the industry. So essentially, we're just looking for an alignment of what is already within the marketplace rather than trying to create something new. And we're doing this by looking at existing standardization within housing. So the Royal College of Art's research study looked at over 25,000 homes across the UK and what standardization was within them. And so we're using this and looking at the material in the supply chain as well as standard performance data from Robust Details, the Structural Timber Association and the Steel Construction Institute. And we've also compiled a database of MMC manufacturers that meet the Department for Levelling Up's policy requirements so that we can see what the industry is already producing. And also through the regular engagement meetings we've had with over 300 stakeholders in large scale meetings like this, but also smaller focused groups and deep dives that we've had with quite a few individuals in this room, it's allowed us to identify areas of alignment where standardization can bring best value to the industry.
I'm back, Katie.
Oh, sorry, I'll hand back to you, Anne. Sorry.
Sorry, everybody. I took longer to get back online than anybody else. So this slide shows a small sample of the types of data that we use to inform the standardization. So we looked at a large database of MMC products that are currently on the market and meet DLUHC requirements to identify the most common dimensions across different materials. We've looked at timber, light gauge, CLT, SIPS panels, and concrete. And we've also looked at construction details to understand the interfaces. We've looked at MEP service routes and standard buildups to meet fire and acoustic requirements for both houses and flats. And we've also looked at the most common door and window sizes in the house types from the Royal College of Art research. We've brought all of these together to inform where we could make recommendations to designers to improve standardization. And the process we've gone through will be documented in the final report so that any future standardization and the inevitable evolution of the kit of parts tool over time can be fully informed about the origins of the standard values that are in the tool. Next slide, please. So those standardized values will be delivered very simply in the digital tool with a default value for the dimensions of standardized parts, as well as guidance information to alert designers to maximum values or standard ranges or whatever is most applicable to that specific part, so that they can design in a way that will be most compatible with the widest number of products on the market. And in this way, they can ensure that their designs can be submitted for planning approval with the confidence that they will have multiple suppliers to be able to meet their requirements without impacting the final approved design. So that's it in a nutshell for the standardization. I'm going to hand over to Graham Clark from Bureau Happold to look at the digital tool in a little more depth. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Next slide, please, Katie. So at its most fundamental, what is the digital kit of parts? If you try and boil it down to what we're focusing on, the digital kit of parts is a consistent method of generating performance specifications from MMC components in the construction of low-rise housing. So we can incorporate a lot of different things in there, but fundamentally, performance specification, why performance specification? clients and designers, in reality, what they're really focused on is the performance of the wall or whatever component of the house. It's really up for the supply chain to come propose solutions to meet that. As a designer, I don't want to be telling a manufacturer of wall panels how to build a wall panel. I want them to come to me and be able to robustly demonstrate that it's going to meet my requirements. Next slide, please, Katie. So, pulling out from Anne's research, what are the key messages coming out of that about activating a steady pipeline and the aggregation of demand? So, kind of 5 key points to the common language, the minimum quality and standards, standardizing performance and dimensions, DFMA to incorporate in design, and obviously multiple suppliers being able to deliver on a design. So if we go to the next slide, please, Katie. So if we look at those and think, okay, how are we going to incorporate those into the digital kit of parts and our consistent method for generating performance specifications? Well, consistency is going to be one of the key things. And it's really encouraging to see already in the comments discussion about the importance of common language. We need everyone to be talking the same language. When someone says, for example, this acoustic rating, we all want to know what testing standards that's defined to, how that's defined. So we're all talking about the same thing when we use those terms. Communication requirements in terms of how those are communicated. What we can do is incorporate a standardized structure for information. So everyone's receiving or creating information, communicating it, or receiving that information in a standard structured way, which is just going to make everyone's lives easier. And also that minimum quality and baseline performance that Anne discussed. We can build that in, so that is consistently applied and aligned across the sector. Next slide, please. Design guidance. So this is obviously quite an important focus of what's come out of the research in terms of standardized performance, standardized dimensions, and DFMA principles. Within the digital kit of parts, we can feedback, and as Anne showed that with some of the examples about warnings if you step outside the standard kind of window openings and heights and things, we can incorporate that into the digital kit of parts to guide designers, give them confidence that what they're producing can be economically delivered by the supply chain, and you're not inherently building something into your design that causes problems later on and might require you to actually change your design once you start engaging with suppliers. Next slide, please, Katie. Ooh. Thanks. And then that key item about multiple suppliers being able to deliver. Obviously, the consistency of communication and working within that design guidance should give you the ability to actually change suppliers if you need to, or open up more of the market later on during your design development. Interchangeability between suppliers becomes key to hopefully reducing supply chain risk for clients there. Digital interoperability is also quite key to this. This is a publicly funded project, and actually ensuring that we don't tie this to one specific kind of piece of digital technology, to make sure it's open for anyone to develop into digital tools, for everyone to communicate in an open way is really important. Next slide, please, Katie. So how is this, how are we incorporating this? How is this manifested? So obviously you need to break down low-rise housing into a kit of parts that it's going to be constructed of using MMC components. So for example, external wall panel here, each component within that kit will have a performance specification template and a quality and principles document associated with it. So the specification template, that defines all the language that's being used. It structures the information that designers are providing. It can also incorporate those minimum standards. So for performance, when you populate that specification template, you can't derogate below certain standards. And it also incorporates that guidance. So when populating that template, if you try and go a bit outside the scope of the guidance, you get a warning. You get some feedback as you go through your design there. The format for that is something we put some thought into. So obviously you could just have that as a PDF that you populate, or it is an Excel spreadsheet and you populate data in. But that's quite an onerous task on a building. Really, we see the the most efficient use of this is going to be embedding this within digital tools. So this performance specification template will also come as a it's called JSON file, but it's a JavaScript object notation file, but it's basically an open data exchange format that will allow digital developers and software developers to incorporate this data structure easily within digital tools that they develop. The quality and principles. Oh, sorry, the quality and principles document. So that is a static document that doesn't change on a project basis. That's set by DLUHC, or the owner of the DCOP, and that defines the terms used within the performance specification template. It says, okay, this data point in here, again, so acoustic rating for this wall. This defines the codes and standards that that's based on, defined by, and that everyone should be working to. It also defines overarching quality requirements, which all DCOP rather specified components should comply to. Next slide, please, Katie. So digital tools, there are kind of any number of digital tools really this could be built into, and as I've said, having this the data distributed in an open way hopefully makes that possible. Here's kind of a screenshot from one example where we're saying, okay, well, this is Autodesk Revit, but you could very simply build a plugin for Revit where you could, if you're building a BIM model, you can select your plugin, select the type of component you want, put that into your model, and that already contains the full data structure you require. Conversely, you can actually create a tool that applies that data structure onto existing families. So there's a number of different ways you can incorporate that. But this is how we see this being efficiently developed, is by incorporating this structure into BIM models. We are looking at workflows. Obviously, what we don't want to do is ask designers to radically, or anyone in the sector really, to radically shift the whole way they work on projects. So we don't have a lot of time in this presentation to go through it now, but as part of the final report, there'll be some analysis on, okay, how does this fit into workflows? How do we make sure this isn't a big leap for people to adopt this? How is this different from existing tools? Is obviously quite a key question. Existing initiatives out there on the market. So a lot of those existing tools that do things like this, they tend to be supply chain led, and they've come back from the supply chain. And maybe, there are some fantastic examples out there that take a design model and map it out into what manufacturer needs. And there are some configurators, but they either tend to be aligned with a specific product, so would tie a design into a client into a specific product, or they're almost too late in the data standardized. So once you've already got a design model, the designer's already produced their information. Actually, we need to embed standardization in from the inception of a project. And that's why this is slightly different to those existing tools. With the standardized data structure, obviously this actually has wide range of benefits beyond the initial specification. So if your design model is produced with standardized data structure, there's any number of ways this can be picked up by existing tools or new tools that people create to create further efficiencies later on through the project workflow as well. Next slide, please, Kitty. So just to highlight some key benefits, which hopefully have kind of been obvious as we talk through that, but everyone talking the same language is going to create greater clarity of communication. It should make everyone's lives easier. Designers knowing what information they need to provide to the supply chain to make sure that the supply chain can then come and provide, have confidence providing those solutions. Designers hopefully will be a really big help for designers to have that guidance and those constraints built into the tool, so that it gives you confidence that your design is aligned with what can be economically delivered by the MMC supply chain. Clients also have greater confidence in using MMC on products because they know that actually there's some interchangeability there. They know that multiple suppliers are going to be able to deliver within that defined set of constraints. It's greater clarity and confidence for insurance and warranty providers and that section of that part of the industry, because if they know everyone's using this standard set of minimum quality and performance baseline, that gives them confidence. And like I've said, that standardized structure for data allows for digital interoperability, opens up various doors, and opportunities for further tools to enhance workflows and improve efficiency. Next slide, please. Katie. So just to set out our work at the moment, the current scope of what we're doing is to develop this concept, and we're developing the templates and principles documentation for a selected number of parts, and then incorporating the output from HLM standardization analysis into that to really demonstrate how this would work. And then some initial testing and developing a proof of concept digital tool, really to just show how this works. So hopefully this can be picked up and fully developed in future. And I'll hand back to Katie.
Thank you, Graham. So we're about to go into the breakout workshops, but just before we do, I think it's probably worth just touching on some of the stuff that Graham and Anne picked up. So in terms of this project, obviously we've laid out what we will have at the end of the project. The project has been supported by the government through the Department for Levelling Up to help industry. So at the end of this year, we're going to have a proof of concept where we've been able to embed as much of your input as possible. However, to continue, we need to evidence that the industry is behind this project and believes that and has the enthusiasm for our approach, which is kind of working with you to create a kit of parts that add values and improves outcome for the whole MMC sector overall. And to move the project forward, once we finish in February, we will need further funding to give it the full benefits to the industry. If you look at this timeline at the moment, we'll kind of be beginning of 2024, but really the idea is 2026. It could be something that industry's taken hold of and is kind of standing on their own 2 feet working with this going forward. So it's how do we kind of support the digital deployment, the testing, the pilot schemes that might be needed, and that overarching digital transformation of the MMC sector. So within the breakout workshop, we'll be asking you a couple of questions, which I'll run through just now, on how we scale the digital kit of parts for the industry and transition the tools so it can be used by the industry in the long run. But you'll also find at the end of the breakout workshop, the leads will be asking you if you support the project. And if you do, we'd really appreciate it if you could put, and it can be after the meeting, kind of putting your name and company name so that we can evidence that support from the industry to the project, to the Department for Levelling Up. And there'll also be a survey after this workshop for anyone who'd like to kind of get involved that way. So in terms of the breakout workshops, so these are going to be facilitated workshops. Obviously, we've had some technical issues already, so hopefully we won't have any more. But if I can ask those that are leading each of the workshop rooms, if the second question you could spend 15 minutes on rather than 20 minutes, that will mean we just have a little bit more time at the end to wrap up. But we'll be using Mural, which I believe Jamie shared with everybody whilst I was being kicked out of the room by Teams. And at the end, we'll try and have enough time just to get group feedback so you can all hear what everybody's saying. But really, yeah, we've just to get your honest feedback is what we've been looking for the whole project since the start. So having that and you popping it on the board is always really helpful for us. So feel free to put as many post-it notes on as you need. So we'll have a general Q&A with the kind of each of your breakout leads at the start. Then the second question is how we scale adoption of the digital kit of parts within the industry. So whether that's through the Department for Levelling Up's help or whether it's kind of industry taking hold of it themselves, getting your ideas there. And finally, we'll spend 5 minutes on asking the question of, are we heading in the right direction? And should DLUHC keep supporting this initiative once the project is finished? As I said right at the start of this workshop, any questions that we don't answer, we will respond to after this meeting. So please put them on the board and we'll make sure we respond back to them. If you'd like a kind of specific response, just pop your name on it and I can make sure that comes back to you. So I'm hoping we can break out into the rooms now. I've not done this in a while, so yeah, I might hopefully I can do this way. Jamie, I think you're managing the room, so are you able to send everybody off? If anybody gets lost, somebody is sitting in the main room, so they'll kick you back into the room you were in.
I think if all the other groups are like ours, we ran out of time.
Okay, that's fine. Can you hear me? Sorry, Anne, because my
Yeah.
computer's crashed. Okay, perfect. So we were going to use this as just a quick opportunity for feedback.
And now we don't.
I think she just froze.
So I think what he was going to say is we were going to use this for a quick opportunity for feedback. In Katie's absence, I'm assuming that everyone else has lost her too, and it's not just me.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Is there anyone from Group 1 that can give us a very quick summary of the discussions that were had, or the key themes from those discussions, or was that Katie's group?
Hi. Sorry, Sophia, you can go ahead if you want.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we spoke about the standardization process, and when we dived into the passive house to include more passive house products, and to get in touch with different passive house associations, and we've got some names and people to get in touch with, so we shall do that too.
Fantastic, thanks, Sophia. Katie, we just picked up, so we just had a quick précis of feedback on Group 1, and I was just about to, rather unfairly, pick on Jonathan to talk us through a précis of Group 2. I don't know if Jonathan's there.
Yeah, I think there was generally the feedback was positive about what we're doing. I think we saw the benefits of it. I think there was challenges to how we can embed some of the future standards that are coming, be ready for the future standards, both around SAP standards and Part L's changes and things, and how we can embed those into it. Obviously, that feeds into the mechanisms we've got going forward for this to be maintained and continually updated to push the boundaries. But also links to how, with the major house builders, how that could be linked in with them, how it might, that they are a big driver for demand in the market, and that really trying to get them on board would be great, so that they are joining in with it. But also then, how does that help can we push their standards to achieve better net zero carbon targets and things in the future, sort of thing. So but generally I think positive, but lots of challenges ahead to implement it and achieve what's needed.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then in Group 3, I don't know if you can have a very quick summary of Group 3.
Yeah, I think there was a really resounding takeaway from our group, I think, and it was all about training and making it accessible to as many people as possible. Just talking about going beyond just the obvious use case of using this tool in the early design stages, but thinking about who's feeding into that and who's going to see the result of that right at the end as well, and what data is traveling through that process, and making sure the language is right for all of those stakeholders who are going to come in contact with that, whether that's as a designer, an engineer, a manufacturer, or even someone who's installing it on site, and just thinking about that full end-to-end.
Thanks, Charlotte. I think, yeah. Oh, sorry, Ellie.
So thank
and I think the last group was Group 4, so I think, Anne, that was your group from memory.
Yeah, hi. We had a quite interesting conversation. I think what came out of it most is that we need to demonstrate a clear value of the tool, and to get uptake, there probably needs to be a pilot scheme and a push for people to adopt this, for example, through a requirement for the Affordable Homes Program, or something even more built into building standards, etc. So really, without that push, I think there wasn't agreement that it would have the impact that we wanted to have.
Thanks, Anne. So I think it's just a couple more slides from me, and then we can let you all go to lunch. So in terms of what's coming next, so obviously we've had this town hall meeting today. So thank you all for firstly your patience with my Teams, which seems to have been out to get me today. And then in January, we are going to be collating the final reports. That's something we're looking at the moment and kind of pulling together. We'll also be issuing the interim report over the next kind of month or so. We're just waiting for DLUHC thumbs up on that one. And then in February, we'll have a proof of concept digital kit of parts, which will be kind of created and delivered to DLUHC. And in March, we'll have the final report completed and a project celebration event, which will be inviting everybody on the mailing list to be part of. So if anyone else would like to be part of that, just let me know and I can add them to the list. A massive thank you from me and the team for all your engagement. It's been so great to hear from industry. And yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time out of very busy diaries to input into this project. If you have any feedback, either reach out to me or email mmc@akaloft.co.uk. If there's anyone you feel we should be connected up with, please let us know. The door is always open for us to hear from you, and it's always nice to kind of have conversations about this, so just reach out. There's a feedback survey with the link that's got the QR code here, and we'll also send out a link to everybody that was involved today and on the mailing list so that you can feed back. But just a huge thank you, and I hope that you have a nice rest of the day. And if I don't speak to you before it, have a great Christmas, which I can't believe is around the corner.